I would like to welcome you to this Knowledge Hut online course focusing on what is required to assemble a compelling business case. Within this course, we have two distinct goals. The first one would be to give you a view of the overall process of a business case and where it fits in the bigger picture in the organization, project lifecycle, and the business concepts. And the second one would be to highlight that the responsibilities of the business case writer are to cut through the real-world problems of their customers by enabling the development of the new and improved systems and products. Let's take a closer look at the material we plan to cover within this course. Our first stop takes us to the elements that make up a methodology. We continue then on to what comprises a vision, including the elements to be found within a vision statement. Next, we look at what comprises both a mission and a mission statement. We follow with objectives, strategies, and action plans. Our last stop within our first unit concerns organizational maturity models and an alignment of projects with organizational strategy. Within Unit 2, we take a multi-faced view, concentrating on various disciplines and how the concept of business cases actually fit in. Before making such a comparison, we first look to define the actual term, business case. Once completing this exercise, we perform a deep dive as to how the concept is viewed within the project management body of knowledge, or PMBOK. Not to leave our dissertation alone in the hands of PMI, we move on to a viewpoint from a Prince2 perspective. ITIL has a distinct view of this concept, and we cover this here as well. Not to leave project management and IT service management to steal the limelight, we then look at the subject from a business analysis perspective. First, we look at the business case through the eyes of the BABOK before moving on to the PMI-PBA viewpoint. One question is still unanswered. What content should a business case actually cover? This question will be answered as well as how the business case should be used. Our last stops within this unit concern the components of an effective business case, as well as the advantages of such a document. This finishes Unit 2. It's not enough for us to show you the importance of a business case. We want to show you how. That's why Unit 3 concentrates on ideas for writing a compelling business case. Here we look at the components that are essential within your creation. We start with the executive summary and then move on to the need. Here we specifically refer to the reason why we're putting together the business case to begin with. We all know it's not enough to list a problem statement or a need without divulging our proposed solution. So of course this element is covered as well. Okay, so we have identified the problem statement or need and have even proposed a solution. But why should the business find this meaningful? You need to make your pitch compelling. There used to be a television program in the 1970s in the United States called Dragnet. And there was a police officer by the name of Joe Friday who always used to say, "The facts, ma'am, just the facts." Well, the organizations take a similar viewpoint. They need facts that justify their decisions. And it's quite clear that to put together a proper business case, we need some information to justify our claims. What the customers want should be our main driver, and this is covered primarily by research. So of course we make a stop here. We also need to show the path to our goal. So design and development plans are also needed to be covered. You knew beforehand that the business was not going to be satisfied without knowing what it is going to cost them. So the investment requirements could not be spared, right? So we've covered the need, the solution, why this solution, how you have substantiated your claims, what it's going to cost. Well, what's left? The business wants to know what they can expect. So we cover this as well. Our closing in this chapter concerns itself with the call to action, or put another way, how we get the enterprise's approval. This closes Unit 3. Our fourth unit concerns the key elements of a business case and the structure required. Enough said. Unit 5 allows us to delve into the tasks that are required for us to achieve success, starting with the inclusion of a stakeholder analysis. Why is this important? By definition, a stakeholder is anyone who is affected by your proposal. So you want to know from the start who these individuals or groups are, right? We describe such concepts as RACI and a power influence grid. We then move on to the mechanics. How do we actually develop, review, and gain approval for our piece of work? Obviously, this requires planning, which we describe in detail. One of the key elements of the RACI diagram I just mentioned concerns the person accountable. We need to know who indeed needs to approve this proposal. Otherwise it has no meaning. Not to be discounted, right? We move on to scheduling and costing, two very important elements required for successful business cases. Before closing, we dot our I's and cross our T's by ensuring that we have all relevant parties involved and we manage our time and resources wisely. This concludes Unit 5. Within Unit 6, we look at the tips and tricks in putting together that winning business case. We cover 7 distinct areas, and they include defining the needs, the outcomes, and align with organizational strategy. We've already referred to this point, but of course it cannot be stressed enough. Options analysis. We all know within a choice there are at least 2 options. We look here what solutions there are, how we analyze each one, and how we establish a decision tree. Cost and risk identification. Are we sure that we identified the total cost of the respective solutions we're offering? Have we listed all of our risks, both positive and negative? How is our qualitative and quantitative analysis moving along? We cover all of these points here. Value analysis. So which option will bring the organization the most value, not only from a cost revenue, but also from a functionality perspective. Here we need to perform such detailed comparisons and expect some insight that matters. Investment management. As a part of the business case, it's important to document how the strategic level investment will be managed during definition, execution, and ongoing operation stages. We review all of this here. Justification. Based on the analysis performed tied to each viable option, justifications and recommendations are documented using specific writing criteria. We go through all of these steps here. Recommendation. So what is our suggestion? You didn't think you would get off the hook so easy, right? Make sure your recommendation has some backing. We'll show you how to do that right here. Next steps. Congratulations, your proposal has been approved. Quo vadis. Here we describe elements to consider during the implementation as well as how we need to show upper management that we're delivering on the promise. That concludes Unit 6. Unit 7 covers various tips and tricks in how to ensure success with your business plan. We first look at ensuring that we link this exercise to current business priorities. Otherwise we have no justification, right? Next we move on to ensuring that the right people are involved. Remember the stakeholder analysis I described earlier? You'll find this document to be quite valuable at this point. It will also help, together with the RACI diagram and the Power Influence Grid, in identifying and communicating with your decision makers. We talked earlier about how we identify risks, but we also have to develop strategies to manage them, don't we? Moving along, we describe and quantify all business costs and benefits as well as consider a range of funding options. Unit 7 closes with us looking at business case writing tips, the writing skills required, and lastly, trends, practices, and principles. Our last unit, number 8, looks at effective business case templates and formats. All good stuff. There it is, our online course in a nutshell. I'm very happy that you've decided to join us in this journey, and let's go together to our next video lecture. So what is this term that everyone uses, but has a standard that appears to be a moving target? A methodology is nothing more and nothing less than a defined approach. To ensure clarity, I'd like to add at least 2 other terms that are very often confused with methodology. The first one being framework. This definition refers to as basic structure underlying a system, concept, or text, which is another way of covering best practices within a certain domain. The other phrase we often use is that of a standard, which is something used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluations. So how do these concepts come together? The framework is your goal, the methodology is your approach, and the standard is how you measure it. Now that we have that clarified, let's move on. On a micro level, a methodology is a set of processes and practices performed in a specific way in order to accomplish a project. Certainly the word methodology comes from the word method, which basically covers the way that you approach things. The roots of methodology are very much tied to a certain way of working within an organization, and one can draw a lineage with the corporate culture. Another phrase one hears quite often is the way we do business around here. We're obviously referring to a methodology. Wouldn't you agree? On a macro level, one can say that an organization which has an effective and repeatable methodology is seen to be mature and is, by nature, holding an advantage over competitors who have these elements lacking. So let's look at the other two terms we've just defined and see how they relate to each other. A body of knowledge is a good example of a framework. The project management body of knowledge defines best practices and how to conduct project management activity. Prince 2 also covers project management. Within both documents, it is clearly stated that you, as a project manager, may or may not be following all that is to be found within the respective bodies of knowledge. In addition, the application of such frameworks within an organization can be seen as a measure of organizational maturity. So we agree that the conditions to be found within a body of knowledge may or may not apply to your organization. Let me provide you with an example. Within the PMBOK, there is a chapter dedicated to project procurement management. Now, it's very possible that there is no need to pay heed to this content because you don't have any procurement activity. Here's another example. You are a project manager, but your organization has deployed a weak matrix, which limits the activity of a project manager. Therefore, not all elements of the body of knowledge will actually apply. Regardless, you'll still need to determine a way of working. This indeed would be the methodology deployed within your organization. Lastly, we need to find a way to measure whether our way of working is effective. This should be represented in the form of a standard, which is used to measure how effective your way of working actually is. If indeed you find that the way of working is not effective, this could require the organization to change the methodologies deployed. You might ask yourself if there is a clear path that organizations should follow to obtain success. Well, the path will be unique within every organization, but the components to be covered are indeed uniform. Here I'm referring to the vision, mission, objectives, strategies, and action plans. One can look at these elements to be your blueprint for moving from dreams to actions to positive results. We will go through each of these elements more in detail in subsequent video lectures. Why is this important, you might ask? A study commissioned by Bain & Company, which is a consulting firm, indicated that organizations that have clearly defined vision and mission statements that are aligned with the strategic plan outperform those that do not. The model was tested with data from 83 large Canadian and US organizations, and they found that mission statements can affect financial performance. However, not as they expected. For instance, commitment to the mission and the degree to which an organization aligns its internal structure, policies, and procedures with its mission were both found to be positively associated with employee behavior, which actually had the largest effect. These elements show a common purpose to organizations and instill within the employees a sense of belonging and identity. They also denote an organizational identity, and everyone knows where the company stands. Goals are created, and it becomes much easier to steer the organization in one direction. Objectives are the means by which the organization measures success. We see these elements also help translate the organizational objectives into work structures and then on to tasks that each employee is responsible in delivering. You might then ask, well, what does this have to do with an online course? Aren't we here to discuss business cases? If you agree that the company needs to know where it's going and that the goals are important to rally the workforce, then you see the value of ensuring that the business case you prepare be in alignment with the vision and mission of an organization. Next, we will look at more detail at what a vision is. A vision is something that a business clearly needs to have. Simply put, it describes the direction in which the organization is going, the goals it wants to accomplish, and links these to the organization's values. A company's vision is the framework for organizational culture, the way work is done. This might sound too general, but it sets the stage for the detailed picture, including all projects that will help the company move closer to its stated goals and objectives. Just think about every goal that a company wants to accomplish. A certain level of profit margins, complete with specific timelines, for instance. Also, the vision includes the main aspects of the products or services this company provides, the aspects that make them valuable to customers. Think of a company's vision as the guiding light for everything that happens in it. It sums up the principles that a company follows and inspires the people working in it. It also allows the management to have one clear focus for how the company should develop in the long run. The purpose of this vision is to be clear about where you want to be in the future. It's as simple as that. This clarity instills a sense of commitment in everyone working at the organization because it provides that those in charge are forward-thinking. They're not just taking every day as it comes. Among the other advantages of having a vision is that it sets a standard of excellence to strive for, and that it represents a link between the company's present and its future. So what are the main features of a vision? First of all, it concerns the future. It states what the company wants to become. For instance, if your company is a travel agency, its vision may be to become the market leader in the area where it operates. This would mean that it strives to provide the most efficient services, which is an example of the second most important feature of a vision. It must be realistic. Vision statements often sound very idealistic, but they need to be grounded in reality. You may strive for perfection in the full knowledge that it's impossible, but there's nothing preventing you from trying nevertheless. This is how visions work. This is how they inspire people. Besides being realistic, the vision must also be believable. It must strike the right balance between ideas and reality. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. Last but not least, the vision must be attractive. Does it sound like a difficult thing to do? Well, it's not very easy, that's true. On the other hand, once you succeed in getting exactly the right mix of ingredients, you'll have gone a long way in securing a company's smooth operation and would have contributed to its overall success. A vision statement is a sentence or a couple of paragraphs that sum up a company's vision. It embodies the company's core values and facilitates decision-making through the company because, as we pointed out earlier, a clear vision encourages commitment. Aside from commitment, the vision statement encourages productivity. People who know why they are doing what they're doing are, as a rule, more productive than those who are unclear what exactly they're putting their efforts into on a higher than a day-to-day level. A good vision statement would motivate and inform people about where the company sees itself in a few years. It would also be revised from time to time because a company's goals and objectives may change as the environment in which the company operates changes as well. The most important thing to consider in vision statements is to sum up the company's strategic goals in a clear and inspiring way. Whether it's a couple of sentences or paragraphs, clarity and inspiration are the defining characteristics of a successful vision statement. If you can sum up everything in a sentence or two, that's great because it will take less time to read and understand for your audience. However, sometimes the company has more than one clearly definable strategic goal. So it may take a longer text to list all of the future objectives and how it wants to get there. Choice depends on the number of goals and, of course, on the number of core values a company has identified. You might have noticed the term core values mentioned here a few times. That's because, along with a mission and a vision, core values are one of the most fundamental elements of any corporate strategic plan. The process of coming up with a good vision statement starts by identifying your core values. This could be speed of service provision or quality of product, whatever it's relevant to your company's field of business. Then these core values need to be linked to a strategic goal of the organization, another element of a strategic plan. The question here is, how can we achieve our strategic objectives and uphold our core values all at the same time? The answer will give you an idea about your vision and will also probably outline the direction you want to follow in the long run as a business. By asking questions like, where do we want to be in 5 or 10 years' time? What challenges can we expect and how are we going to deal with them? A picture of your vision will emerge, and based on this picture, you'll be able to make a winning vision statement. The mission of a company is to answer the question, why does this company exist? It expresses what it does, how it does it, and who it does it for. It's a description of the present state of the company, as opposed to its vision, which is focused on the future. As you've probably guessed, the mission of the company, like the vision, includes its core values and strategic goals. and is an essential part of a strategic plan, alongside the vision statement. A quick way to distinguish between the two is to remember that the mission describes where the company is now, while the vision describes where it wants to be in the future. What is its ideal state? Yet both mission and vision statements share the goal of inspiring, motivating employees, and keeping the company focused. So what does a mission include? To begin with, it spells out what the company does, what field of business it's engaged with. Then it says what products or services exactly are provided and who it provides it for. In other words, it will describe the needs of the company's aims to satisfy the strategic objectives it set itself for and how it does all this. The how is particularly important as it is what makes your company stand out among your competitors. This is where core values come into the picture. These values typically relate to how a company does business. They could very well represent its competitive advantages in the market. Besides all this, the mission statement would speak volumes about important aspects of your business, such as the company's pricing policy, for instance, by saying that you aim to offer the highest quality service at the lowest possible price. It would also reflect the company's relationship to the community, to its business partners, and last but certainly not least, to its employees. Like vision statements, mission statements get to be reviewed and revised as a company grows because its mission changes. If at first its mission was to supply a cheap insurance, for example, a small regional community, at some point it may have the capacity to service the entire country, and this will have an impact on its mission that needs to be reflected in an updated mission statement. Or maybe the company wants to expand the range of products it offers, which also merits a mention in an updated mission statement. As a whole, however, the mission of a company is one of the cornerstones of a strategic plan, of its overall operation, as it helps decision making at all levels and helps keep the business focused.